everybody, what's happening? Welcome to today's live stream. I am Brian K, and yes, we are live streaming today on YouTube, and what we are going to talk about is going to be how you can start pulling in chord tones to your guitar solos, okay? So the ticket to this is basically understanding your chord shapes, okay? And the guitar is like that. You know, shapes for scales and chords, when we learn them, we can move them around on the fretboard down here, which is basically our highway to awesomeness, is cruising around all the different neighborhoods on your fretboard where scales and chords live. And when you're playing lead guitar, you want to be hip to chord tones. Okay? Now, if this is a new concept for you, never fear. I'm going to show you how to pull chord tones into your guitar solos. All right? Now, I'm going to be using minor pentatonic and major pentatonic with chord tones. Okay? So we're going to be in the key of G today. Today's kind of like a key of G kind of day. Okay, so we're in G, and we're looking at a minor pentatonic shape here off of the 3rd fret, or a major pentatonic shape here off the 3rd fret, because there's where our G note lives on the low and the high E strings, right? Which are important notes when we're thinking about this chord to pull into something in the key of G. So I'm going to keep things really simple, and we're going to keep it to like kind of like some like 1-4-5 type progressions, maybe a shuffle and boogie feel. So we're going to look at right now like a shuffle, right? I'm just playing a G7 chord. So we'll say we're rocking out on a shuffle, and you want to think about your G chord. So the first thing to do is just like take a common chord, movable chord shape, a good movable shape like this big old major bar chord right here, which I'm sure most of you should know. And if you don't know these chords yet, you can take a look in my description, because I have stuff that will help you learn your chords down there if you're not up to that. But if you do, and you know some scale stuff, which is really important now for this lesson. Let's break our chord down, okay? So we have a big old bar chord right here. Now, we have smaller little major chords inside the big chord. We have these things called triads. So you learn a little geeky theory, a little guitar geekery, okay? Triads, right? Music theory stuff, which is basic nuts and bolts, which are just 3 notes that make major chords. And this bar chord contains a few triads in it. And I'm not going to go through all the craziness of naming all the notes and all that stuff, but I'm just going to show you real quick, right? So you can get some mileage out of this right now, the shapes, to see the shapes. Now the first one is just a little triad on the top of the big bar chord, right? It's just the top 3 strings of the big G major bar chord. And then another triad that you want to see is going to be the D string, the G string, and the B string of the big bar chord. Just those 3 notes, right? If you take those 3 notes out, you have another little triad, a G triad there, and then we'll go to one more, which will be this one right here. These 3 fingers, which are basically kind of looks like an E chord, right? Because it is an E chord shape being moved around with a bar in back of it, right? But there's another triad right here. That's another G major triad. So there's 3 cool triad shapes that go from the A string up to the high E. And if you want to pull some chord tones in, you need to start seeing your chords over your scales. So you need to, I'm going to hip you to a concept, okay? Remember opaque projectors in school, like the big overhead projectors where the teacher would take a transparency and put it down on the projector and it would shine a light like on a big screen on the wall and you would see stuff? Well, you need to start seeing your chords that way in your mind's eye. You need to start looking at these chord shapes and you want to impose them over your scale so that instead of only having 5 notes to say something, now you can pull some chord tones into your 5 notes and add additional color. So what does that mean? Okay, example, G7. Like a vamp on G, right? G7. Minor pentatonic will work just fine on something like this, right? So you want to start to add a little more sophistication and some options, other options or note choices into your solo, right? There's a triad right here on the top 3 strings. You can get a lot of mileage out of this major third right here on the G string. Okay? So what I'm doing is I'm just basically using some chord tones to embellish my lines. Right? Simple little thing, but you need to see the chord shape there to do it. Okay? It's really important. Now, let's look at another shape that we can use in this area, aside from the other 3 that I showed you. I'm going to show you one more. It's a D shape, right? We all know D. If I move this shape up here so that I have the 1st and 2nd fingers up here at the 7th fret, and it's just the D chord shape, well, that's actually now a G chord. And you can use this with your pentatonic, right? And all I'm doing is minor pentatonic scale. With these added chord tones of happiness that just live right next to the scale tones. So how do you start to get used to pulling it in? Okay, here's the exercise that you'll want to do. You are going to simply just play through a minor pentatonic in this case, from the low E to the high E, and then come down into triads, right? Hit that triad and then descending. These are arpeggios, okay? Arpeggios, right? And just hit the chord at the end, but move up in a scale like your minor pentatonic scale. And hit the arpeggios when you're descending. This position, you get a lot of mileage with 3 different really good arpeggio shapes. But you can still bring other arpeggios into your solos this way too by moving up in your scale. So I'm just connecting my 1st and 2nd minor pentatonic positions. But I'm, lot of us will cruise up there on the G strings like the BB box. A lot of guys show this as the BB box, but you move up to your BB box, right? And there's where that D shape lives, which in this case, it's a G chord. Okay? So move up in your scale, go into the BB box, right? And then put the triad in and descend using the arpeggio, right? And just do the arpeggio. See? Move up in the scale, go down in the arpeggio. And then really the next step of this is after you get used to doing that, okay? And you're starting to see these shapes a little easier, it's not so hard, right? Okay, then start creating with them, okay? So if you're in your BB box and you have this awesome D major chord shape, which is a G chord up here, the root note is on the B string, by the way, with this triad. There's your G note right there, right? Well, take your BB box and start throwing those chord tones. In this case, this chord tone, this one, and this one are, I guess you could say, magnetic focal points, okay? So, just start creating arbitrary lines and listen to the chords, the sound of the chords with the scale. Simple lines. And start connecting the different positions of the chord shapes. And in this case, it's pretty easy because you're not too far away. And that's really the name of the game, is simplify and keep it as simple as you can. You can get pretty complex with this information, and it may not sound like you can, but you really can go out into space with this stuff. But the way to get there is to really focus on simple chord shapes. Now, we were in G for these examples, right? Well, let's move to a different key, and we'll just use the same information. Let's go up here. Well, let's go up a whole step to A. So now we're in the key of A. And it's the same thing. We have a big old major bar chord right here. A major bar chord, but the same little triad shapes in the same places. You have the triad up here on the top. Then you have the triad here on the three middle strings, your B string, G string, and D string. And then you have the one that looks like the E chord here on the A string, the D string, and the G string, right? So you have three triads. And you have your minor pentatonic. So again, same exercise. Move up in your minor pentatonic. Move down in the arpeggios. And then go up to your BB box and connect your, in this case, it would be the A chord using the D chord shape. A quick and easy reference, hey, if you're at the 5th fret, like we are in A, right, and this bar chord is here, if you simply look up 4 frets and place your 1st and 2nd fingers on, in this case, it's the 9th fret, 4 frets above the 5th right here. Just look 4 frets up and play that shape, and there you go. You're in your BB box right here. You have the A chord, and you have the arpeggio. So cruise up into your BB box out of your 1st position minor pentatonic, and throw the triad in on the descend. Okay? So that's really an easy way that's the easiest way I can honestly think of to help you guys to start pulling these things in, because a lot of folks get confused about how do I start pulling chord tones into my guitar solos. And it's really not hard when you break it down to simplest possible way of interpreting things, which is just looking at your chord shapes. No, you do not need to know a whole bunch of theory to do these things. It doesn't hurt to know it, but you don't have to know it. Just know that off the bat. If you don't know much about theory or anything, it's not necessary, okay? So, but what is necessary is that you see shapes on your instrument. So you want to start taking chord shapes, and this can go way beyond just major or minor chords. I mean, you could start tricking it out. The further your chord knowledge, the more advanced you get with chords, the more that you can start to mess around with bringing in different sounds, like major 7, minor 7, nines, all that kind of wholesome goodness, which will be for another live stream. But right now, I just wanted to get you started on seeing this stuff so that you can begin to pull chord tones into your playing. Now, if you guys have any in particular types of things you'd like to see a lesson out here on a live stream, go ahead and throw some comments in down there. Let me know if there's anything in particular that maybe has been giving you some trouble and you'd like to know a little more about it, or a way of being able to practice, or anything like that. Let me know down there in the description, in my comments. And speaking of descriptions, if you are looking to get your chops up and you want to go further than you can take it, then using the YouTube videos that are out here, and I do post weekly, and I'm doing live streams. I'm always going to give you guys information. But if you want to go further, I do online Skype style lessons. Okay, so you can contact me about that, or you can check out the stuff I have in my store. I have some lesson packages there, guitar courses that will help you get your chops up with pentatonic scale, and hey, those elusive and most kind of crazy things known as the modes. I got chop builder stuff for the modes too. So links in the description. And until next time, I'm Brian K. Thanks for being here. Stay safe, be cool, play your gift fiddles, and have a good time. And let me know if you want to see any in particular YouTube lessons out here. Leave a comment down there. Okay, I'll see you next time. Peace.